Story 1. I work in the Nevada desert, a little facility out in the middle of nowhere. To get home, it's about an hour drive of pretty much nothing. One day driving home, my car ran out of gas. I've always wondered if this dreaded day would come, and here we are. I had no choice but to start walking. I always drove past this little roadside motel, so I guess I don't have much of a choice. I walked a couple miles until I got to it. I asked the front desk if they had any gas I could use. They said yes, but it would cost me. It was way too expensive. I didn't even have enough on me, so I had no choice but to clean dishes and do other odd jobs around the place for the rest of the night. By the end I had made enough money, but I was completely beat. No way I could drive after that. I asked if I could at least use a room for the night. Not wanting to cause an accident, the owner said yes. Thank God. Although what he said after surprised me to say the least. We have 2 rooms available. One's haunted, and there's another next to it. I laughed it off, figuring it was just him messing with me after the long day. Friendly jokes. Just to be safe, I chose the room next to it. When I got in there, what a dump. Just a shitty table with a shitty bed and a shitty broken fridge. I sat down on the bed, exhausted. I looked up to see there was a hole in the wall, about the size of a coin. Wow! How classy! Out of curiosity, I looked through the hole with one eye. I saw the room next to mine. At the table, a young woman was seated brushing her long brown hair. She was beautiful, from the back at least. I didn't want to be a creep, so I just went to bed. A couple hours later, I woke up with an uncomfortable feeling, just in the pit of my stomach, that something wasn't quite right. I sat up and saw the hole in the wall was now glowing. I kneeled back down to it and peered through. All I could see was red. Bright, glowing red. I figured the woman had just placed something, I don't know, an electronic in front of the hole. I went back to bed, unable to shake the feeling. The next morning when I woke up, I headed straight to the front desk to get all paid so I could get the hell out. As I got the gas, I decided to ask the owner, "Hey, that woman in the room next to mine, is she all right?" I was getting kind of a bad feeling. The owner laughed at me. "Oh, so you saw her. She's the haunted room's resident." I laughed it off again, trying to continue to joke around with sarcasm. "Well, she's awfully pretty for a ghost." The owner handed me the gas tank. "Then you haven't seen her from the front. Her eyes are glowing red." Story 2. Why I'm no longer a park ranger. When I was a park ranger, I usually worked the day shift, but there had lately been a lot of night shift guys quitting. It was obviously inevitable that I would be asked to do night shift. I arrived at the watchtower at 5 p.m. The watchtower was next to one of those large ponds/small lakes. I climbed up the stairs to the top and entered the tower room. There was one clear glass wall and 3 wooden opaque walls. Inside was a bed with a nightstand next to it on the right. There was also a kitchenette with 2 sets of cabinets on the left-hand side. Next to the glass wall on the far side of the room was a radio communication station. On the nightstand was a flashlight. Inside the nightstand were a pair of binoculars and a long-range walkie-talkie. Inside the small cabinets was food. I couldn't open the big cabinets for some reason. There was most likely stuff in there that were above my pay grade. Around the watchtower room was a walkway. Anyways, I went to the communication station and radioed my partner Donnie, who was at the main ranger station. I said, "Well, Donnie, it looks like it's just us tonight." He didn't reply though, so I assumed he was in the bathroom. So I took the binoculars and walkie-talkie and stepped onto the walkway. I scanned the far ridge, the roads, and the forest below. I was looking for illegal campsites, troublemakers, and other riff-raff. As I passed my binoculars across the far ridge, I saw what looked like a snowman. I had a double take and thought, a snowman? In the middle of July? I looked again and saw that it wasn't a snowman but a kid wearing a ghost costume, just staring at the watchtower. The costume was a sheet pulled over with 2 eye holes cut out, like the ghost costumes in Charlie Brown. So I radioed Donnie again and asked, "Hey Donnie, are you there?" Donnie responded, "Yeah, I just made it out." I got a chuckle out of that. Donnie was always good for a laugh. I then said, "Yeah, say, can you check out the ridge? I saw a kid up there wearing a ghost costume. You know, a sheet with eye holes cut out." "You mean like from Charlie Brown Halloween?" he asked. "Yes." Donnie then left the ranger station and headed for the ridge. About 40 minutes later, the sun had set and it was a bit dark. I scanned the ridge again, but the kid in the ghost costume was gone. So I radioed Donnie again. "Are you there?" Donnie responded, "I'm almost at the ridge." "What's up?" I said. "You might want to search the surrounding area. The kid has moved." "Sure thing." About 10 minutes later, I saw Donnie's flashlight shining on the ridge in the distance. I looked in my binoculars and saw Donnie shining the light around and Donnie shrugging. He then radioed me and said, "I don't see anyone H." Donnie's flashlight then went out and there was just static on the radio. I spoke into the radio, "Donnie? Donnie? Donnie? Are you there? What happened?" Just then I heard a loud shriek coming from the base of the tower. I shined my flashlight down and saw, right between the tower and the pond, a pale blue woman with empty eye sockets staring at me. All of her limbs looked broken and bent in the wrong way. Just then she started sprinting up the stairs towards the top where I was. I had never seen anyone move that fast. She was running faster than Olympic runners. I freaked out, ran inside, grabbed the biggest kitchen knife I could find, locked the door, and hid next to it. There was no way she could run up those steps that fast, even if her limbs weren't broken. Then I heard the sound of one of the big cabinets opening. My blood ran cold. I slowly looked over at the cabinets to see one of the big ones wide open with a ghost from the ridge looking right at me. I froze in fear. That is until I heard it giggling. I recognized that giggle. I pulled off the sheet and saw it was one of Donnie's kids. He pulled out a walkie-talkie and said, "Hey Dad, we got him." I heard Donnie's voice come over the radio. "Ha ha ha, good job." I grabbed that walkie-talkie and said, "Ha ha, very funny you jerk." Donnie replied, "Yeah, listening to you scream like a girl was the best bit." I responded, "Yes, screw you too, Donnie. By the way, that wasn't me who screamed. That was that zombie chick at the stairs." "Who was that? Your wife?" Donnie hesitated in responding and just stuttered out, "Am I your wife? Do ghosts look like zombies from that distance? You said it yourself, it looked like a Charlie Brown ghost." I then said, "Not the ghosts. There was a woman at the bottom of the tower. She shrieked and ran up the stairs faster than an Olympic runner." Donnie then said, Yeah. I didn't put a woman on the stairs." Needless to say, I put in my resignation when my shift was over. Story 3. It was a cold, dreary night, with misting rains and a chilling breeze. Me and my uncle were coming back from visiting our cousin who lived upstate. With another 20 miles to get home, we pulled off the interstate and started down a rural stretch of highway that led to our small town. Just off the edge of the interstate exit ramp we saw a man, standing in the cold rain with a bag over his shoulder and his thumb out, trying to hitch a ride. My uncle pointed the man out. "Look at that poor son of a bitch." I looked at my uncle. Should we give him a ride? My uncle shrugged his shoulders. I pulled the cart aside and the man jogged up to our window. "Where you headed, buddy?" "Elmdale," the man said. Elmdale was a tiny town about 15 miles up the highway. Most of the town died out after the Great Depression. There wasn't much left but a few scattered houses and the county cemetery. We agreed to give the man a ride, and he climbed into the back seat of our car. My uncle and I were both pretty tired, so we didn't try to make conversation. We just drove in silence. That is, until we heard giggling in the back seat. We looked in the rear view mirror. The hitchhiker had his bag, a green canvas army surplus style pack, opened up. We couldn't see what was inside, but he was staring into it with a big smile on his face. He whispered into the bag, "I know, soon enough they'll see." And then he giggled again. By this time he notices we are looking in the rear view mirror at him. He hastily closes the bag and looks out the window like nothing's happened. My uncle asks, "Hey buddy, what's in the bag?" The hitchhiker gets an enraged look on his face. "None of your damned business." Me and my uncle exchange glances. Maybe this was a bad idea. A ride in silence for a few more miles. I speed up to try and get to Elmdale faster so we can get this creep out of our car. Then we hear the whispering again. "Close now, darling. Won't be long. Be ready when the time comes." Again we see that he's got his bag open and is talking down into it. I clear my throat and say, "Do you have a pet in that bag or something?" The hitchhiker looks bewildered. "A pet?" He starts looking around the car. "No, I mean in your bag. What's in your bag?" The hitchhiker stares defiantly back at me in the rear view mirror. "None of your damned business." I push the gas pedal down further. Up ahead, through the rain, I can see the edge of the county cemetery coming into view. We are close. The hitchhiker starts laughing. It's a maniacal laugh, like the kind you'd hear echoing down the hall of a psych ward. He's got his bag open, staring down inside. I hear my uncle say, "Fuck this," and it's all the encouragement I need. I brake hard and pull the car roughly onto the shoulder. We are just outside the cemetery gates. I throw the transmission in park and yell, "Get the fuck out of the car!" My uncle springs from his seat. In a second he's out his door and ripping open the rear passenger door. He grabs the hitchhiker and yanks him out. The hitchhiker shrieks and pulls a box cutter from his jacket. Just as he extends the blade, my uncle punches him in jaw. The hitchhiker stumbles back and takes a hard fall into a seated position. Instantly my uncle and I are back in the car. I throw the transmission in drive and floor it. We pull away, and in the rear view I can see the hitchhiker. He's spinning in the road, slashing air with his box cutter, shrieking at the top of his lungs. In a matter of seconds he fades from view. The car is up to speed, and he is long gone. In the confusion my uncle wasn't able to close the rear door. The momentum has partially pressed it closed, but it rattles, slightly ajar. My uncle reaches over the seat to pull it shut. "Oh shit," he says. "What?" He left his bag in the back seat. We exchange glances as he pulls the bag into the front seat. Hesitantly he pulls the flap open. His hand freezes in place. His eyes bulge. "Holy shit!" I ask him what it is, but he's unable to speak. Instead he turns the bag toward me and pulls the flap all the way open so that I finally peer inside. And do you know what was in that bag? A human ear which was sealed in a bottle that is completely filled with some kind of liquid. We decide to left that bag on the side of the road, and we sit in our car and ran away. Story 4. I was hired to clean out an old mansion. What I found in the attic still haunts me. I've been a professional cleaner for years, specializing in old, abandoned properties. It's not a glamorous job, but it pays well, and I've always enjoyed the solitude. However, my latest assignment has left me questioning everything I thought I knew about the world. It started like any other job. I was hired by a wealthy client to clean out a mansion that had been in his family for generations. The place was massive, with dozens of rooms filled with dust and forgotten furniture. My client, Mr. Dawson, gave me strict instructions to leave the attic alone. He said it was full of old family memorabilia, and he would handle it himself. Curiosity has always been my weakness. After a week of cleaning, I couldn't resist the urge to take a peek. One afternoon, while Mr. Dawson was out, I climbed the narrow staircase to the attic. The door was locked, but a quick search through the house yielded an old key that fit perfectly. The attic was unlike any other part of the house. It was dark and musty, with a single window covered in grime. As I moved my flashlight around, I noticed a strange, metallic smell in the air. The space was filled with old trunks and covered furniture, but one thing caught my eye immediately: a large, ornate mirror leaning against the far wall. It was an antique, with an intricately carved frame that seemed out of place in the dusty attic. I approached it cautiously, my flashlight beam bouncing off the glass. As I got closer, I saw something move in the reflection. My heart skipped a beat, and I spun around, but there was nothing there. I turned back to the mirror, and my blood ran cold. The reflection showed the attic as it was, but there was a figure standing behind me, a tall, shadowy man with glowing red eyes. I felt a chill run down my spine as the figure raised a hand and pointed directly at me. I stumbled back, knocking over an old trunk. The figure in the mirror started to move, slowly stepping closer. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs felt like lead. Just as the figure was about to reach the surface of the mirror, I snapped out of my paralysis and bolted for the door. I slammed the attic door shut behind me and locked it. My heart pounded in my chest as I leaned against the door, trying to catch my breath. I could hear faint whispers coming from the other side, but I couldn't make out any words. The metallic smell seemed to linger around me, clinging to my clothes. I decided to leave the mansion that night. I packed my things and left a note for Mr. Dawson, explaining that I couldn't continue the job. As I drove away, I glanced back at the house and saw a figure standing in the attic window, watching me. A few days later, I received a call from Mr. Dawson. He sounded frantic, asking me if I had gone into the attic. I admitted that I had, and he cursed under his breath. He told me that the mirror had been in his family for centuries, and that it was cursed. Anyone who saw the figure in the mirror was doomed to be haunted by it for the rest of their lives. I thought he was crazy, but the nightmares began almost immediately. Every night, I dream of the attic and the figure with the red eyes. I feel its cold presence watching me, waiting for the moment when I let my guard down. I've moved twice since then, but the dreams follow me wherever I go. I've tried to destroy the mirror in my dreams, but it always reappears, untouched. I'm telling this as a warning. If you're ever cleaning out an old house and find a hidden attic, leave it alone. Some secrets are better left undisturbed. Story 5. In the basement. I just wanted to share a few events that have been happening in my house. 4 years ago, I lived in my aunt and uncle's basement. Weird things used to happen, but nothing I couldn't explain. The TV would turn on in the middle of the night, I found out. During power fluctuations, the TV's default state was on, so I figured that's all that was happening. What happened to me, however, I can't explain. One night, I heard my aunt and uncle get into a horrible fight. I don't recall what it was over. Voices raised, doors slammed, all terribly uncomfortable for me to hear. Once the fight settled down, I heard a knock on the door dividing upstairs from the basement. My uncle called down, "Anon, I am coming down." I didn't want to talk about anything I heard, so I quickly turned my Xbox off and pretended to be asleep. I heard his footsteps, slowly walking down each step. "Anon." I laid in silence. The hair stood up on the back of my neck. I have known this man all my life. That is not his voice. I mean, it was my uncle's voice, but it was uncanny. Something was wrong. My gut told me, whatever you do, do not open your eyes, do not talk to it. Anon, I'm coming to you now. The impostor said to me. I heard his footsteps walk up to the side of my bed. It hesitated and then walked through me. I felt my blood turn to ice. My adrenaline shot me out of me. I looked around. The basement was empty, and the bathroom door slammed shut. I ran upstairs as fast as I could, and when I got to the front door, my uncle's car was gone. I phoned him. "Where are you?" I asked. My uncle told me that right after my aunt had left the house, slamming the door behind her, she took off in her car. He immediately followed her in his car. I was home alone. I never told anyone my story. But it doesn't end there. A few months later, my girlfriend was over at my house. She was just gaming when she heard a knock come from upstairs. "Ms. Anon, can we talk?" My aunt called down to her. My girlfriend, hearing this, closed her eyes and hid under the blankets, her hair standing up on end, her gut telling her, "Do not look and do not speak to this being." The impostor then sat at the edge of the bed. My girlfriend said she could feel the weight of my aunt and her French bulldog sitting on the bed. "Ms. Anon." My GF refused to respond. After 3 minutes, sitting in silence, my girlfriend feels it is safe to open her eyes. No one is there. No one ever was.